Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Play Factorio. This would be episode 4. I know I haven't really done any updates in a while. I'm sorry, it's been a busy couple of weeks. You'll notice that I do reload the game at one point. I don't actually remember why I did that. Anyway, for now I'm just going to be checking on my oil network. And I believe I'm missing a few pump jacks because my production is very low. So I'm going to start making a pump jack, and at the same time I am going to keep working on my smelter blocks, which are happening. Of course, since I'm using mods, and this is I don't know if it's a glitch, but it's something that I've noticed that's a little annoying, but once you get, if you've got any kind of mods installed, every single time you start up the game, it refreshes all the achievements, so you get every single one of the achievements in order again. And that's, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually kind of useful because the first achievement that you're probably going to get is the "it stinks and they don't like it" achievement, and that's just a freebie warning that you're about to get attacked. Anyway, we're going to be building a little belt balancer here, because I've noticed that if you get down to the iron belt towards the end, it was very, very left heavy, which is somewhat problematic. I do kind of want my belts to be balanced, even though, I mean, the right side is being used by all of the belt makers and the gear makers. But, you know, belts look better when they're fully balanced. And, yeah. Honestly, there are much better ways that I could do this, now that I think about it, and I probably will be remaking those belt balancers for this corner balancer design I have recently been using. But, you know, this works just as well, and honestly, I'm not too worried about the space usage, even though, as you can see, I'm trying to get the spacing down properly. What I'm trying to do here is actually, since the copper belt is full, very full, and the smelters are being slowed down, which means that you should probably build some kind of storage. And, I don't know, I think of some people don't really like the idea of storage very much. I do, because the problem isn't one of, oh, well, these are resources that are just wasting space but not being used. The problem is one of, if you suddenly put in a new build in your factory which just uses ridiculous amounts of resources compared to what your production is. You know, if you've already got a built-up storage, you have a little bit of leeway in which you can, you know, start working on your raw resource production before problems start to arise of the, hey, look, I suddenly no longer have anything, and my production completely stopped variety. So yeah, I'm going to be putting in some copper chests in my most advanced factory, the one that I've been playing pretty much since I got this game. I can actually just walk away from the computer, just leave Factorio running for, I think I calculated it. It came out to, I think, 14 hours, and nothing would happen. And that's just for storage. So it's going to be however long it takes for the raw resources to run out, plus on top of that, I've got like 1.5 million iron and copper plates that would keep the factory running in storage. So I think of storage as kind of a useful thing. I'm also going to be trying to build some sort of a gear supply, because it's always useful to have a copy of every single product that you're making in the logistics system. And gears are pretty basic. It's not really worth it from maybe the standpoint of what's the word I'm looking for here? from the basically, how you can just make gears on site for pretty much every single or production facility that requires gears, and that's usually what I do. But at the same time, having some gears always works a little bit better. As now, I'm gonna be throwing some more belt balancers down, and some of them are halfway belt balancers. You'll actually see those somewhat often. The halfway ones are that's what I call them at least. Those are the ones that take a like that one right there, the electronic circuit balancer right there. So it takes circuits that are only on one side of the belt and puts them on both sides of the belt, which is pretty useful. I mean, it does kind of increase throughput. It actually doubles it technically. So that's definitely something that you should be looking for. But it doesn't always work out well, because if suddenly you've got things coming down from two sides, then it ends up overbalancing it to one side. So it's a very much a situational usage of belt balancing. Now I'm slowly trying to migrate my science system over to my new factory. Like, this is the ruins of the old beginner factory that I started out with, and I'm thinking I'm gonna build science off here because I've got most of the basic resources down. Like, I've got copper production going on, I've got iron production going on, I've got the space to continue expanding my copper and iron production. Coal shouldn't be, I mean, I don't really need a coal belt, but I'm probably going to end up putting one down later. Probably same with the stone belt. Honestly, I've been favoring this somewhat bus-like design, where I do 2 belts of copper, 2 belts of iron, 1 belt of electronic circuits, and either 1 belt of coal or 1 belt of solid fuel, or occasionally like a belt of steel or something like that for very steel. If my steel production is significantly far from my iron production, normally that's not really a big problem, because I just towards the end game, copper becomes a much more often commonly consumed resources, since you're making productivity modules, you're making all sorts of modules, you're just ripping through the green circuits. So of course the easiest way to put in steel production is literally just to take out a chunk of your iron production and replace it with steel. Just have some iron smelters feed straight into some steel furnaces, and then just throw that on a belt. Why not? I found that works really well. It's not like a full bus where you're delivering almost everything, which I think is a little bit problematic. It does lead to very stretched out factories, which I'm not a huge fan of. I do kind of like the whole relatively circular square factory design, because A, it's efficient in terms of walls, and B, it has a tendency to make you spend less time running around. So with a pure bus factory, you could literally end up having a 10-minute run from one side of your factory to the other, while if you turn 90 degrees, it takes like 30 seconds to get across your factory, which is great as long as you're running in the 90 degrees direction. If you gotta go the long way, that sucks. So I tend to build more circular factories, or square-shaped, I guess, factories in this case. Now, speaking of steel, I am going to be making some steel production. Right now it's going to be using steel furnaces because I am woefully lacking electric furnaces. That's mostly why the steel production is happening. I mean, you use 15 steel, and I think advanced circuits are my biggest stumbling block at this point, because you need 5 advanced circuits per steel furnace, but or per electric furnace. But you also need lots of steel at 15 apiece. That comes out to be pretty expensive. So I'm just going to start working on steel production, and I'm just going to throw it all in chest. I don't have any active steel consumption yet, except for maybe my bullet maker. But that's not really something I'm particularly worried about at this moment, seeing as how I have recently started building, or I think I recently just finished researching laser turrets. I'm not sure if I've started building them yet. I think I have at this point. Then again, I think I might be thinking an episode ahead because I definitely gotten more recording done than I have voiceover work. But this is still going to be the development of the science system. Right now, I'm just working on basic green science. It's pretty simple. Um, I mean, well, it's not as simple as red science, of course, but it is quite easy compared to, say, blue science, which is a pretty big technological jump. I don't think it's too big of a jump, because honestly, I do think blue science vastly improves your game to the point where it's just a completely different beast, and you need to treat it as such. But it's a pretty big jump. So for now, I'm just gonna do red and green science. I'm not really worried about blue science. I don't have the factory production capacity yet to do that. So I'm thinking science is definitely going to slow down these next couple episodes, which actually does make me a little bit sad. One thing I've always, I mean, if you look at my RimWorld Let's Plays, I mean, heck, I'm a scientist in real life. I'm a chemist. Like, I think science is good. I think science is great. Science is the first thing that you should do as much as possible because, well, it works. Like, it's awesome. It makes things better. That is literally what science does. That is the goal of science, is to improve. Answer questions, and that leads to improvements of humanity. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's people that dislike science. I think they're weirdos because, come on, like, you don't need to be able to understand it to reap the benefits of science. How many of you know how to make a phone? The answer to that question, absolutely no one in the world knows how to make a phone. There's an interesting TED Talk about that. Like, you'd think phone engineers know how to make a phone, but no, they don't, because a phone engineer knows how to put the components of a phone together. But if you were to drop them off in the middle of nowhere, like alien planet, I'm thinking like Factorio start and said, "Hey, make me a phone." They're gonna be thinking, "Well, let's see here. Phone uses some steel, right? So let's try to figure out how to make steel." Yeah, phone engineer probably is not a material scientist. They're probably a computer engineer. Therefore, this is just vastly different to them. Either way, we now have rudimentary green science. It's not running yet, but it is producing, and it will need to be expanded. I'm thinking I'm going to try to expand it to 4 or 5 producers. I found a ratio of, I think it was like 4 red to 5 green science makers works really well for lab production. I know that's not the right number in terms of actual ratios. It just isn't. There's better calculations. I mean, but the 4 to 5 has worked for me. I'm also gonna finally take the time to just connect these 2 robotic networks that I've had going on. I mean, I've had the one down there that's repairing and protecting my oil system. Now I had one that's been building my furnaces. And up until this moment, they were separate. They are no longer separate, which is awesome. I'm gonna be connecting them, and now I can share robots and share repair packs, which is great because I don't. Well, I guess I do have an automated repair pack production, which means that I can then continue to. Well, I don't have to manually carry repair packs to the other side of my base. That's pretty much it. It's really useful. Anyway, I'm gonna throw down a couple labs. probably gonna end up throwing down more labs than this. I would rather be all out of science packs and have my research choke point, I guess, would be the term for that. I would rather have that be in number of labs compared to number of science producers, because I mean, I'm not actually sure exactly why I would want to do that, um, but it's just kind of how I've always played it, I guess. Just more labs is better. They'll get as much done as they can and as fast as possible. And then once you get to the really uh, late game researches, they start taking longer and longer, and eventually, like, you have 12 labs that are just burning through all your science at the very beginning of the game, and then at the end of the game, like, you've got two blue science makers supporting all 12 of your labs just because the research time has gone up so much. And that's one thing that's not clear in this game. I think they don't make it obvious that different sciences take different amounts of time to research regardless. Alright, I know part of the reason that putting up storage tanks is so that I can store fuel or light oil or heavy oil or whatever until I can use it. But in this case, there's just too much light oil coming out. I'm gonna knock down the tanks, replace them. I've also replaced my ammo maker. That's part of why I was working on my steel production, because now I have regular steel that's belt fed, so there's no problems with robots and fail safes, and I don't really need to think about it too much. And even better, I've got a couple of spare furnaces, so I'm going to be replacing these steel furnaces, which are making steel, with electric furnaces, which are much better in just in every way. I actually am not sure if they're significantly better in any way except for just being the third tier furnace and bigger. But they actually can take modules, as opposed to the other two furnaces cannot take modules. And I think their pollution is lower. I want to say by a factor of like 5. Like a regular furnace pollutes, I think makes pollution at a rate of 9 or 10. I think 9 might be the mine, and then 10 would be the furnace. And electric furnace does it at like 1.8 or 2 pollution. Either way, just kind of hopping on the electricity train. Plus it makes power simpler, because I no longer need to fuel those furnaces. As you can see, I don't actually have a fuel belt yet. I've talked about how that's one of the belts that I usually end up putting down. But the thing is, if I can get far enough into the game without putting down a fuel belt, I'll never need to put one down. Just because you use coal to make plastic, and I think that's literally the only use for coal late game. I mean, like, solid fuel I usually use to feed trains, that kind of thing. Actually, I'd try to switch to solid fuel as soon as I can, just because it's got 3 times and change the energy capacity of coal. 8 megajoules versus 25, which works for me pretty well. And as you can see right now, I'm stepping up to those 12 labs, so I'm gonna have my science running out pretty soon compared to my research power. Which, again, good thing for now, because eventually it will balance out. Now I need to start putting down some production blocks for just kind of high-end production blocks, but I don't have the resources to do that. As you can see, like, I've still got probably like 50 or 60 furnace blueprints that I'm just not going to be able to build for a while because I don't have enough furnaces. Actually, it's more like 10 furnace blueprints, but like 60 blueprints that I haven't actually put down yet, because that's probably going to become a furnace block as long as the iron furnace block, and it's going to be stacked. I think I was going to stack it 6 times if I could. So have 3 copper, 2.5 iron, and 1/2 steel. Though I might just kind of build the steel block off to the side there, because it works. I mean, it's not um, particularly in the way, so it's not. I don't think it's a bad thing to use it. I've also still got that funky little furnace set up where with the 3 belts in the middle. That's just for compression. I know stack inserters, which are awesome, and in a recent update, were given their own research. So this is not entirely accurate. This episode are designed to be able to compress a belt fully. At least I think that was part of the design thoughts. I don't want to rely on that. I'd rather just use belt or splitter based compression. Plus, on the other hand, like those 2 or 3 extra squares of belt, they don't really take up that much space. I mean, the map is infinite, so I don't really care about space. Uh, but they do store a couple items that I can then just use. Um, and I mean, yeah, it's kind of like storage. Storage is good. It's an extension of that principle. Anyway, we're just gonna start getting rid of those easy red science only researches, because I've got plenty of red science. And we're gonna check up on our ammo factory, just to make sure everything is running smoothly. Of course, our copper ore production is starting to get a little low, so we're gonna expand our deposit in an ideal fashion by leaving 2 spaces between each mine so that they have maximum coverage. Not the most fastest way to consume a deposit, but the most efficient. And I mean, I'm not trying to consume fast at this moment in time. And anyway, at this point, I'm probably going to be ending the episode soon. So I will see you guys later. Bye!